The Vraxian cubs had found Elizabeth's helmet 3 cycles ago, and Elliot still couldn't believe what he was witnessing. "You're telling me," Elliot said, squinting through the observation window, "that the galaxy's most feared apex predators are now playing dress-up with Liz's combat gear?" Elizabeth leaned back in her chair, a smug grin plastered across her face. "Not just playing, Commander. They're on guard duty." The scene beyond the reinforced glass would have been comical if it weren't so unprecedented. 2 Vraxian cubs, each the size of an Earth tiger with midnight black scales and teeth designed to crack starship hull plating, sat at attention near the compound's western perimeter. The larger of the 2 wore Elizabeth's battered helmet, its LED indicators still blinking weakly against the alien sunset. The Vraxians were legendary. Their homeworld of Vrax Prime had repelled 7 different colonization attempts. 3 species had declared their entire planet a quarantine zone. The Galactic Council had explicitly forbidden human contact after the disastrous first approach incident that left an entire diplomatic vessel in ribbons. Naturally, humans had ignored that order within a standard year. "When I authorized the agricultural exchange program," Elliot muttered, running a hand through his graying hair, "I expected crop failures and maybe some property damage, not this." This had started when Elizabeth's transport crashed in the Vraxian wilderness during a supply run. Her distress beacon had screamed into the void for 2 days before Elliot's team could organize a rescue operation. By the time they arrived, they'd expected to find remains. Instead, they'd found Elizabeth teaching 3 Vraxian cubs how to play poker. "They're not mindless killing machines," Elizabeth had explained during her debriefing, sporting several bandages and an insufferable smile. "They're curious. Territorial, yes. Aggressive when threatened, absolutely. But curious." The cub's mother, a creature the size of a dropship that the humans had nervously nicknamed Mama, had apparently dragged Elizabeth's crash pod to her den rather than eating the strange, soft alien inside. Whether this was maternal instinct, curiosity, or some combination thereof, nobody could say. The xenobiologists were still arguing. What wasn't up for debate was the result. "Look at them," Elizabeth said, pointing at the cubs. "Perfect posture, eyes scanning the perimeter." The little one just detected that maintenance. Drone at 200 meters, Elliot watched as the smaller cub, still only wearing what appeared to be Elizabeth's tactical vest wrapped around its torso, tensed and growled at an approaching hover drone. The machine wisely redirected its path. "They've adopted human military protocols," Elliot said slowly. "Vraxians have adopted human military protocols? Well, I had to teach them something during those 2 days." Elizabeth shrugged. "They were fascinated by the helmet's HUD display. Started mimicking my guard rotations. One thing led to another, and..." She gestured at the window. The Galactic Council was going to lose their collective minds. Elliot had already received 3 urgent subspace communications demanding an explanation for why long-range scans were detecting human defensive signatures emanating from a Vraxian settlement zone. He'd ignored all 3, partly because he was still processing the situation himself, but mostly because he wanted to see how this played out. "Mama's bringing them food," Elizabeth noted. The massive Vraxian matriarch emerged from the tree line, something that might have been a local equivalent of a buffalo hanging from her jaws. She dropped it near her cubs, who immediately broke formation, but not before the one wearing the helmet carefully removed it and placed it on a nearby rock. "They're treating it like actual equipment," Elliot breathed. "Not a toy. Equipment." "Humans aren't the only tool users in the galaxy, Commander," Elizabeth said. "We're just the only ones crazy enough to share." That was the part that terrified and thrilled Elliot in equal measure. Every other species in the Galactic Council had established strict protocols about technology transfer, cultural contamination, prime directives. Humanity had looked at those rules, nodded politely, and then proceeded to befriend everything they encountered. Sometimes it ended badly. The Zeltron incident, the crystal negotiations, the thing we don't talk about on Proxima 7, but sometimes. "They've integrated the helmet into their pack hierarchy," Elizabeth continued. "The dominant cub gets to wear it during prime guard hours. It's become a symbol of status and responsibility. You've created Vraxian super soldiers. I've created a bridge," Elizabeth corrected. "Watch." One of the cubs, the smaller one without the helmet, suddenly stiffened and released a low, rumbling growl. Within seconds, Mama was there, scanning the horizon. The cub chittered and gestured with one clawed appendage toward a section of forest. They're communicating, Elliot realized. Coordinating. They always were. We just never stuck around long enough to learn their language. Elizabeth stood and headed toward the door. Come on, evening feeding time. I promised I'd bring them those protein bars they like. The ones from the commissary. They've developed a taste for peanut butter. Elliot followed because what else could he do? Court-martial the woman who'd accomplished in 2 days what the Galactic Council couldn't manage in 2 decades. The woman who'd taken humanity's greatest strength, their ridiculous, stubborn, absolutely insane willingness to extend friendship to anything with a pulse, and used it to bridge a gap everyone else had declared unbridgeable. As they approached the compound's exterior gate, the cub wearing Elizabeth's helmet turned its massive head toward them. The LED indicators cast blue light across its scaled features. It made a sound, half growl, half chirp, that Elliot's translator struggled to interpret. Elizabeth chirped back, and the cub's tail swished approvingly. What did you say? Elliot asked. I told her she's doing a good job, that her guard rotation is exemplary. Elizabeth pulled out a handful of protein bars, and that when she grows up, she's going to be the best damn security officer this outpost has ever seen. The cub's chest swelled with pride, a distinctly human gesture that it had somehow adopted. Elliot looked at Elizabeth, at the cubs, at Mama watching from the tree line with eyes that perhaps weren't as alien as everyone had thought. The council is going to want a full report, he said. Tell them the truth, Elizabeth replied, scratching the helmeted cub behind its ridge of spines while it purred like a catastrophic engine failure. Tell them humanity did what humanity does best. What's that? Elizabeth grinned. We showed up, we didn't give up, and we made friends with the monsters. The cubs resumed their guard duty as the twin suns set over Vrax Prime, one of them still wearing a human's helmet like a badge of honor. And somewhere in the compound, Elliot began drafting a report that would change the galaxy's understanding of both humans and Vraxians forever. After all, if humanity could befriend the universe's apex predators, what else might be possible? Everything, Elliot thought. Absolutely everything.